Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a review of this is a weird one, guys, KV-4 KTTS, and I apologize I didn't get this out earlier. Unfortunately, the only way as of right now you could get this is the engineer starters on the last Waffentrager, which is over, so I am just right on time with this one. But in case this thing shows back up, and I assume I've made an ass of you and me, I believe more than likely it will show up again at some point, so give you a quick review on this thing. When we get to the gameplay, I wasn't sure if I was going to actually do this review, so I'll say something to the effect of, if you've seen the review and then you're seeing the gameplay, then I decided to do it. Well, guess what? I decided to do it. Here it is. It is a TD, a Tier 8 Russian, Soviet, premium TD. Casemate-ish. Now, this turret thing is about 45 degrees field of regard each side. If you have a T-28 HTC, you'll understand kind of how that looks and works. You'll see it in the gameplay how it slides back and forth. So it only goes 45 either side, and it's kind of like a little mini turret on top of it. It is a very odd tank built on the KV-4 chassis. So like I said, casemate-ish. Thick armor, but vulnerable. We're going to talk about that when we look at the armor in just a minute. Quickly through my setup here, you can see I'm running vents, an IA, and a rotation mechanism. It is very sluggish. I wanted that so I could actually get some spinning going on there. If we look at the other equipment you might use on this thing, other options are a rammer. You could obviously chuck that on there. You could go hardening. We'll talk about whether or not that's a great idea, and a lot of it has to do with tiering. Maybe as a secondary setup, you could set up a more hardened kind of tank for taking on same to lower tiers and kind of just laughing at them as they bounce off of you. But I think you're going to want the firepower stuff if you're going after the higher tier. So gun rammer's a player, hardening is a player. I don't know if the gun laying drive is a big deal. Turbocharger is a player if you just do not want to be extremely slow. So maybe you have a speed firepower setup in there as well. There's plenty of ammo in this thing. I mean, it's got the little 107. It's a 227 pen for the standard round, which is actually pretty good for a tier 8. Not bad at all, especially if you're talking about a premium where you're trying to make some cash. And then 289, which is a little bit anemic against tier 10s, but most tier 8s struggle in that area. But 289 is not bad with an APCR for taking on 9s and below. And the high explosives, nothing to write home about, or again, whatever, in case you just did write home. Whatever I'm trying to talk about. 420, remember, it's a 107, so it's not that bit large of a caliber gun there. So plenty of rounds. I carried 25 APCR. I used standard large kits as opposed to using food or anything. You could do another setup. Let's see if I actually had that. I don't believe so. No, and I am a little bit of the ways through my field mods. I have not selected the last one because I have 2 more to go through on this particular tank. Crew-wise, you can see them over here. They've got brothers in arms and they're working on their first skill. I actually just upgraded this person with the new 6th Sense is a automatic skill. You can see it's popped over here to the left now, and I actually have an extra skill on this guy now because of that. Getting the free 6th Sense there. Actually, that's not true at all. This guy just had an extra skill. He's a special character. Never mind. Ignore that. I will have a video out. I don't know if you've already seen it, or maybe it'll be a little while later. We'll talk about that whole skill thing just a little bit there. All right, that's the crew. Not great. Okay. That's my setup there. For my numbers with my setup, what you're looking at is 2,816 DPM, which is pretty respectable. A 0.31 dispersion, which is very unusual for a Russian tank. These 107s tend to be more accurate than the rest of their guns. When you start talking the 122s and all those things, very derpy. 2.28 is okay on the aiming time. It's starting to get good. There's that 45 to 45 each side, but none of the stats there are changed by what I've done with my equipment. 1400, we'll talk about the rest of these numbers in a minute, but I got a top speed of 35. So if you wanted to add another 4 or 5, whatever the turbo adds, and get it closer to 40, you could do that if you dropped a turbo on that thing. Let's do a quick comparison amongst some of its peers. What I have selected here is obviously the KTTS, the ISU 152, which is the big hitter, kind of a different animal than the KTTS. And also, it's not really an assault TD, it's more of a hider-ish. The Jagdtiger 8.8, which is, in my opinion, about as close an analog as you got. A tank with some decent armor that's situational and has a lot of firepower. It's spitting rounds down range quite fast. And then the TS5, which is more of your assault TD. And the KTTS kind of wants to live in both worlds. It doesn't do either one fantastically good, but it's competent. And there is one thing it does really nicely we'll get to. Average damage 360. Obviously, that big blapper, I think it's the 130 millimeter gun at 750, the 8.8 at 240, which is much lower, and then the TS5 a little higher at 400. So these are kind of all over the place in terms of alpha damage. The penetration is good. It's not the BL10 good at 286, but not bad at all at 227. Less than the TS5, more than 8.8. Rate of fire is quick. Let's go down here to DPM, which is interesting. Now you'll notice mine was a little higher based on the vents and Brothers in Arms and other things I got going on. But 2600 base with 100% crew and no equipment's pretty good. In fact, it's a third. Interesting that the JT and the TS5 come out mathematically the exact same DPM at 29, almost 3,000. So like I said, it doesn't quite do the bang, bang, bang 8.8 sniper thing, and it doesn't quite do the amount of damage that the TS5 assault tank does, which is fascinating at how much DPM this thing has with its armor. Pretty crazy. That's why it's near the top of the list. We'll take a look at how the KTTS is doing here in a moment. So it lives in a tweener land. Hit points is a little bit lower than these two big bruisers here, but more than the ISU. Here's that armor I was talking about. 200 on the whole is pretty good. Although look at these guys. Other than the ISU, these two have better armor. Thicker anyway. Maybe not necessarily layout better, although I think you would make an argument that TS5 is a bit better. Come down here for mobility, and we're talking about a speed of 35. As soon as I find it, there we go. 10 in reverse, which is the slowest of these three. It is very painful. A sluggish tank. Its traverse speed is 25, so it feels like a TS5/ISU. I was kind of fascinated actually that the 8.8 is at 33. It's quite a bit higher than the rest of these here. So it does struggle a little bit to turn around. Stationary camo or concealment-wise, it's not great at 5. It's a really large tank, so it's as far as a TD goes, it's not hiding. And good, it's not blocked. 350 on the view range is atrocious. The ISU has the same thing. The TS5 gets 20 more. The 8.8 gets 40 more. The 8.8 at least is competitive with high view range tier 8 stuff-ish. But 350, this thing is blind as a bat, so be very careful with that kind of stuff. Trying to outspot somebody, you're probably not going to do it. And that's not a great combo when you're trying to hide and spot people, because it doesn't hide very well and it doesn't spot people very well. So what do we have? Like I said, we have this kind of interesting tweener between... I'm not even going to say anything about the ISU. It doesn't compare to it. It's not a big heavy hitter fear gun kind of thing. But between the 8.8 and the TS5, it's sort of in between these two. Not quite as fast. Pew Pew doesn't have as much armor as the TS5. But I said we'd mention what it does do well, and that's side scrape. It's quite the side scraper. It also goes around corners pretty well based on that 45 degrees of azimuth on the gun from where it can go. And the other cool thing that's really interesting about it is if you're fighting... One of the big things with a TD, especially a casemate, is if you're fighting at different angles and you're constantly trying to shift the hole, people are always popping out and getting shots on you because you're slow to shift and the gun doesn't have a lot of azimuth. Well, this guy can kind of hang out in one spot and the gun can swing back and forth. So it gives it a few more options, sort of like a tank with a turret, sort of like. Sort of, but not exactly. Let's go over and take a look at the armor that we've been discussing here. You can see it. Holy cow. All right, really weird, right? There are so many angles on this thing. I think if we can go to the visual, as soon as I figure out how this works, there we go. We go to the visual, we'll just look at it real quick. Look at all the weird angles on all the armor and all the little spots to shoot at. If you go back here to the live, then we can see that, you know, this turret thing is kind of interesting. We've got 250 right to the side on the mantlet, and then it goes up to 500 right above. So left and right of the mantlet is relatively weak. Then we got a 254. Then we got an auto bounce because of a weird angle. Then we got a green at 213. So these are fairly narrow. Also, that turret will be moving a lot. But what I will say is, if you ever see the turret start doing this, and you're looking at it from the side, shoot it right in the side of that little cheek there, because it's just pennable all day long. I mean, 187, you're talking about a 175 IS-6 standard round has a chance to do that. And if it goes even more, we're down to 155, right? Less angle right there. So that is something. I talked about the scenario where you're looking right and left with your little, is it a quarter turret? I guess it's a third or quarter turret. Looking right and left, and there's a guy over here, and you look over here, and boom, you're getting shot right into the side of that. I had that happen multiple times. The giant tumor is not quite as weak as you might think. It's not amazing, but you're looking okay-ish at 230. And then we got some auto bounce angles and stuff. Right in the middle there, though, you can pen it. With other tier 8s, it's going to take some gold more than likely, unless it's a high pen standard round. And of course, lower tiers are going to struggle. If you just look at these, if you look at these amounts and think about tier 7s and 6s, you have a good chance of bouncing just about everywhere. Even here, this is thick armor, but it's just flat right there. Very little angle, right? So green, and then right here, holy cow, 175. We're back into the, oh, my IS6 with 175 standard pen is going to have a good time on that right there. So what does it do? Well, look at this auto bounce angling, man. I mean, you can put a bunch of angle, and you still got a whole bunch of side armor on this thing. In fact, it is 125 straight on, 126 on the side of the turret. So this thing is just a real monster in terms of side scraping. Remember, most casemates don't side scrape well because the gun can't get on angle, right? You have to straighten up a little more than you want to, but with this thing's angle, pretty good. Also, with it sitting back, that helps out because the back end of the tank comes out first and the gun's back here, so it can clear the obstruction, take the shot, and go back in. So with some careful side scraping, it can be quite the monster in terms of that. How has this thing been doing? Because I was curious about this. So I called up the tomato.gg current stats for NA last 60 days, and it is sitting number 3 in win rate. But if you start to sort it by these other things, it really does drop down. DPG, frags, it's way down here. Damage ratio is even further, I think. Where did it go? All the way down here. Yeah, way down here, because it has pretty good hit points, relatively low alpha for a TD. So it drops off. I think the win rate thing here is good, but that is probably because your more dedicated players tend to get tanks like this from events like this. All right, they spend the money. They're generally more experienced, oftentimes better players overall than the large, I guess what am I trying to say? The public, the rest of us, the rest of them, that kind of thing. Whatever the hell I'm trying to say. So I think that's been bolstered by that fact. If I had to guess in the next 6 months, I would say it'd probably be down somewhere in the middle. Right, based on its DPG not really cranking and its frags not really moving towards the top and all the rest of these numbers not looking that amazing. Even survival isn't that high. Even with its armor. Where is this thing? Where'd you go there? Is it all the way down? Oh my gosh, it's almost last. So it's almost last. That may be more about its ungainliness and its weird armor profile that really isn't that great other than side scraping. We didn't mention it, by the way, but its depression is depressing. It's horrible, -5. So that obviously limits it in terms of the way the maps are designed in the game right now and the hold down meta. Other than hiding behind some rubble on a corner, that's about the best you can do with the thing. All right, so I'm predicting a middle of the road overall TV, even though its win rate is doing pretty well right now. All right, how did I do with this thing? As I find it, I'm at 80%, but a very low sample size of only 10 battles. All right, so I've won 8 out of 10 battles. My hit percentage is 59.29. Ooh, that is low. All right, I'm not really sure why that is, to be honest. Maybe I think there were a couple games in there where I spent a lot of time shooting, doing blind shots and stuff based on the amount of ammo it had, as I recall. We'll see where that gets to after 100 battles, but 59 is way too low, so something goofy's going on there. Could be random chance as well, or the fact that I shot so many blind shots. So at 10 battles, that could happen easily. Damage ratio, destruction is really high. Damage is okay. Armor use is pretty good at 1.18. That's only 10 battles. I suspect that will be more like a 0.5 after 100 battles. That would be my guess. But you know what? I have a couple of games against the same to lower tiers, and it's a monster in those tiers. It really is. You will get a lot of bounces. Unfortunately, it's a tier 8, so you're going to see 9s and 10s. And that will limit its ability to have great armor. So far, experience is good at 1,000. 1,500 is a little low for Tier 8 TDs. Doesn't really support a 80% win rate, so that is purely, mostly random chance at only 10 battles total going so far. Assistance low as you might expect with a TD. And I've had a 2,700 damage game with 6 kills, so I haven't really had any real breakout games with the thing so far. That's how I have done. All right, that's my quick review on it. Take a look at some gameplay, and then we'll wrap it up. Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Welcome back. Let's talk about grinding wins out. I'm in my KV-4 KTTS. This is a tank that you can get out of the engineer magic portal. I mean, literally that is what it is. Welded tanks. Magic portal. If you've already seen a mini review before this, then I decided to do it. If not, then this is just a standalone video. I'm just chucking that out because I'm not sure if I want to do it or not. Being a bit lazy, I think. The KTTS will have been as described earlier, or I'll tell you right now, it's a TD. I am top tier. This is a great setup for this thing. It has fantastic armor for its tier and below. Its tier and below. Now there's plenty of things that can hit 2 and still pin it at its tier, but in terms of taking on 7s, and that really stunk, in terms of taking on 7s and 6s like it has to bully here, pretty good. I'm going to have a bit of a rough start here with RNG and some other things. I am kind of sitting out in the middle, but I figured I could just test the armor, come out here and just start bullying people. And I'm going to pay a bit of a price for that here. Especially this 3002 is going to absolutely rough me up. It'll go okay against the old 67. Then the Scorpion G takes a big piece of me there. I mean, that's the oddest place for a Scorpion G I think I've ever seen. But you know what? Good on him. He pushed up there. So the 2 Tier 8 TDs on the teams are up here doing the JOB. Now I'm starting to get shot from guys inside. And unfortunately, I did not want to smash that 3045 up against a rock, but I had to avoid. And now I'm getting shot from behind. So just like that, I've given up about half my hit points, and it's at this point I've transitioned to I'm going to have to just grind this thing out. I'm really hoping I can find this dude. Good news for me is I haven't been beat up by the artillery, so once I look back there I can see that the Sturb is no longer able to hit me. We'll just back out here, and the gun depression is a problem. Just that little tiny lip right there is causing me issues. Watch this 3002, just absolutely pins me right there. Then I eat another shot. People are shooting, well actually that's 2 from him now. Looks like the one I bounced. So push that relic or that wreck back behind me there. I'm sort of figuring I'm about to get focused by artillery. And I'll be honest with you, at this point I thought, well, I'm probably done. Tried to shoot that guy with our APCR. Looks like a nice green indicator, but we get into an angled bit. He's doing a nice job just absolutely harassing me right here. As long as I don't give him the side of that turret thing, which I believe what he got me. Yep, so I showed him that flat plate. That's what he got me. So as long as I'm straight on, I'm in pretty good shape with him. Absolutely just bumming out right there. Try to push up here. Now he's shooting HE. And this is, once again, I figured I'm kind of in trouble, but I had a kit, so that'll work. Now he's tracking me. This is the grinded out thing, right? I'm just, at this point, I'm just trying to survive. He's spamming HE at me. I'm hoping to get fixed. The artillery does its thing. I bounce one. Looks like he switched back to try to, maybe he had a weak spot on my lower plate or something. So we're going to back out. We'll leave that guy alone who was doing a really bang-up job against me. And then he makes a bit of a mistake. He kind of moves up. It looks like maybe the game is won for them. That's a bummer. Another bounce. Now he's going to come in here, takes a shot. We did get a reset. That's going to save the day for the moment. And now I'm kind of back and forth. All right, which one of these guys is going to poke out? I'm really just hoping our guys can do some work down the cap. There is one dude on the cap just doing some yeoman's work down there. The SU, good on him. So a lot of this game up to this point has nothing to do with me other than sort of clogging up the middle. But that's been of limited use so far. And the enemy team looks like they got a little bit froggy and decided to try to push in and do some damage. Now I haven't mentioned it, but you'll notice that Tiger 2 has been sitting in the back the whole time. That was not helpful. He will get on his horse in a minute. I am glad nobody came around my left side. Big hit to the 3002, which was huge. Pretty soon the Tiger 2 will finally just start moving, but he's not a whole bunch of help. So really, like I said, my entire mentality here is just trying to survive these guys, see if I can't take some of them out. I think the 3002 is about to make a runner up the hill. I'm really hoping that WZ pokes again. He's not doing a very good job of his angling when he comes out. He just sort of comes around the corner with his front end. If I can pin him down, Artie does me a solid and gets rid of the 3002. So now I can move up. I can do this without being seen because I would be proxy lit by the 3002, so that's nice. There is a T25 AT still up on the hill. This 100 is still alive. I mean, good on him. So many people in on this team so far have done so much more than me to keep us in this fight. But pretty quickly, I'm about the only guy left, so we just really got to start working on grinding this thing out. So I'm going to back out. I'm thinking about going around to the cap side. I see the Tiger 2 finally moving. I see him poke out, so let's go ahead and try to do a little damage to him. Unfortunately, we hit the top armor right there. The Artie, the 13F3, has been busy just really taking shot after that Su-100. So get that guy pinned down. The reload on this is really nice. Unfortunately, he sort of gets away right there. There goes a Scorpion G. He goes up the hill. So that's a bummer. I'm like, well, shoot, can't do anything about him. I'll have to deal with him later. Boom. Tiger 2 finally does something for us. Moves to a position where he has a shot. Although, bizarrely, all the way over there, he had a shot on a guy getting up the hill. I notice now that the T-25 AT has moved off the hill. That's very useful for me because now I can do this. I don't have to worry about somebody shooting me in the side. We'll come in here. This guy does not have any idea what's about to happen. We'll get rid of him. Spin around very slowly. I considered going up the hill. That may have been the better move overall, but I was also kind of interested in just showing up behind these guys and start shooting them. I know that their 13F3 is over there. I was hoping to catch him out in the open, and unfortunately, I think he's moved a little bit further east. I'm not going to find him or see him, or he's not going to see me really because I don't see him until about here-ish. And I'm like, ah, great. I was really hoping to see something. So we're just going to kind of take a shot here in the direction he was. I don't want to get gang tackled. I do see that the T-25 AT has gone to the other side. T-50-2 is doing a nice job keeping those guys lit so Artie can work them over. Tiger 2 is very slowly moving around. I only have one guy on cap, so that's a minute 30. I don't want to get too far away, and I find this dude sitting there. And then this guy makes himself available, pokes out and I'm able to kill him. So I don't know if he thought I'd already fired at the CS or what. And we're going to just come around this corner. Oh, yeah. Now there's where that very wide, relatively for a casemate, field of regard for this tank really came in handy. I didn't have to come around the corner too much. The CS-53 is sitting there. And all of a sudden, holy cow, there's only two of them and, what, 4 of us. So, end game. Like I said, just grinding it out. Finally got up to 2100 damage, getting a little bit of something done here. We'll push up. I really can't afford the CS-53 to get around me, so I'm kind of wondering where he's gone. I sort of expect to proxy light him, but he does that. Little 107 on this thing, relatively little anyway for a tier 8 TD. It's quite nice. I don't really know what this guy's doing, but it worked out for me. Might have been worrying about Artie or potentially trying to get a shot on somebody. 304 rolls in there. Now, I don't want to sit on the cap and let the T-25 AT get up on the hill and get lucky with some kind of poking over, snipey kind of shots. Not too worried about it, but if I cut him off here, he's just, or plain old kill him, which is really what I want to do, then we can just end this game. But I'm well within his alpha range if you can get a pin on me. We'll use these buildings. There he is. So now we can sort of side scrape right here. He's looking at us. He was moving. And we'll just snap one off. I'll take the kind of more snappy shot. If I miss, I was going to push up to the building and then look for a closer one later. I also had the aid of the 304, although he's behind the building for some reason. I don't know if he could really help me. Maybe, yeah, maybe he had an angle right there. And then slowly but surely, Mr. Tiger 2 is wandering around towards the fight. Mr. Tiger 2, wandering around towards the fight. All right, so we're either going to go wrap up the review or we're done. I don't know. We'll find out. That's all I've got. See ya. All right, well, welcome back. I showed you a bully game, right? I was top tier. I got to bully a bunch of lower tiers. The enemy team made a bunch of mistakes. I think that was actually the best game I had at 2,700 in there, and we ended up with a win. And those are the kind of games that are a lot of fun in this game we call World of Tanks, because with the tiering system, it's fun to be the big bad every once in a while and to stomp on people. I don't know if you'd really want to do that every game. Maybe you do. I don't think I do. I kind of like being the underdog at times, but that game was pretty fun. It's I was going to say mediocre. I'm going to call it an average an average. And unfortunately, that's going to make it slightly above average, I think, to a good number of the tech tree tanks. You know, do we want to rate it within all of the Tier 8 TDs? Do we want to rate it within just the premiums? Do we want to rate it only against tech trees? I don't think we want to do that at all. Amongst the premiums, it's going to be in the middle. Amongst all of them, it's going to be in the upper third, I think, overall for TDs at Tier 8. It is unique. If you like, side scraping and good armor against same to lower tiers and slower gameplay, this may be right up your alley. If you are a more dynamic player, I don't think you're going to like this tank very much at all. That's all I've got for today. We will see you. Thanks for coming by.